This is the first meeting of the Policy Board that has been held remotely, and I must also confirm that it's been recorded. This is an important step for the Policy Board, and as you know, we are not able to hold meetings in public and at our usual location due to the government guidance on public health measures to tackle the COVID-19 emergency. Therefore, it is important that we take these steps available to us to make the proceedings of this Policy Board open to scrutiny, not only by the public, but also by all the other elected members, and I can advise that the recording of this meeting will be available to watch on Redfordshire Council's website following the meeting. Although most members of the board are familiar with the basic rules to be followed for a meeting held remotely, to ensure that the meeting proceeds efficiently, there are a couple of additional points that I need to bring to your attention. These are, it is even more important when meetings are being recorded that it's only the person who is speaking who has the microphone on. This is because on the recording, only the person speaking will be shown in the screen rather than the screen that will be visible to us, and if noise from another microphone is picked up, the picture on the recording may move to that source of that noise. 2, for the same reason, it is important that there is a short pause between speakers to enable the camera to adjust to the new speaker. 3, the contents of any show conversation, instant message sent on the Teams system will be shown on the recording. Members who are accessing by phone only should also put their phones on mute when not addressing the meeting. Before moving on to the agenda, can I ask the clerk to do a roll call of members so that it's clear who is present on the recording? After the roll call, we will start the agenda. Thank you, members. Robert?
Thank you, Convener. From my records, I have Councillor Binks, Councillor Brown, Councillor Burns, Councillor Andy Doig, Councillor Dawn, Councillor James McLaren, Councillor Kenny McLaren, Councillor Max McLaren, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor McGurk, Councillor McNaughton, Councillor Montgomery, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Strang. The only absentee I can make just now is Councillor Rodden. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, and if that is noted, that Councillor Rodden is not here at the moment. Do we have any declarations of interest? Oh, Emma Rodden might be here because she's just put her hand up. Councillor Rodden, can you come in? Are you here? Councillor Rodden, yes, she is. Okay, thanks, Emma. I apologise for that, we couldn't see you. Can I just ask members not to use the hand if they can help it? Can they use the meeting chat? It just allows for a proper flow of conversation and it means you're getting your turn at the right time, if that's okay. Thank you for that. Thanks, Emma. Any declarations of interest? None recorded? No. Thank you very much for that. Can we go to the items of the board? The first one is, can we agree the minute of the meeting of Police, Fire and Rescue Subcommittee? The meeting was held on the 10th of March 2020, page 1 to 4. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's Councillor Brown's agreed to the minute. Councillor Devine. Members, there's somebody shuffling paper. Could you please mute yourselves? Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 2, Finance, Housing Revenue Account, Revenue Capital Budget Monitoring Report, page 5 to 14. Can we agree the report?
Agreed. Can I ask a question?
You can. Yes, you can, Bill. Go ahead.
Yeah. On page 3, there is talk of, back to page 2, there was talk of an overspend due to COVID. My understanding is that all extra expenditure due to COVID would be picked up either by Holyrood or Westminster. Is that correct? If no one can answer directly, can ask that it be noted and the information brought back to us.
Okay, Mary, can you answer that question for Councillor Brown, please?
Yes, I was just waiting for the mute button there. Apologies.
No,
Yes, there is an overspend, as you'll note, and the paper has been amended to pick up the additional COVID costs. We're feeding into the corporate process to gather the information about costs relating to COVID. I'm unable to confirm to what extent those costs would be covered by the Scottish Government's COVID fund. That's something that we would need to pick up separately with the Council's Director of Finance.
Okay, Councillor Brown, we will bring back a report and make sure that you get that information you've requested. Thank you. Sorry, we can hear a background. Is someone wishing to speak? Okay. Can we go back to the minute, to the agenda, please? Item 3, Community Empowerment Fund, page 15 to 24. And can we agree?
No, convener. Sorry, convener, I put in a question into via the chat facility.
Okay, let me see.
Asked to comment if I could.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, was it on item 2 or item 3?
It was an item 3, convener. It was in relation to just a supportive comment on page 16, clause 2.1. I would like to commend to the board 100% the recommendation of the officers to award £10,000 to the Friends of Howard Park to investigate a possible asset transfer of the pavilion. I've actually been in this pavilion a few years ago. It's actually quite big. It did have a kitchen at one time. I think it's got tremendous potential, and I think to grant that award would build on the success of Gillian White and her team at the Friends of Howard Park. I mean, the existing play park facilities that they've already promoted have been so successful that Spates and Nursery come along from Johnson to use them. So I think to award this grant would be a tremendous chance to build on what they've already did. Thanks.
No, you're very welcome, Councillor Roy. You're absolutely correct. And as members will see in the recommendation 2.1, we're approving the award, if you agree to this, £8,500 to Finding Your Feet, an award of £9,450 to Erskine Music and Media, an award to Spates and Tenants and Residents Association of £9,650, and an award to the Values in Action Scotland of £9,625, together with the £10,000 to the Friends of Howard Park. This is quite exceptional work. We're absolutely delighted to present this to the board today, and we hope that many people will continue coming in with new projects to access this funding. Do we have any additional questions on this item 3? No. Thanks very much. Can we agree the recommendations then? Thank you. Right, item 4, Green Spaces Park and Play Areas and Villages Investment Fund, pages 25 to 30. Councillor Joy, are you going to ask another question on this
Well,
paper?
it's another comment. What I did was I actually sent you a list of the items that I wish to comment on. They're all together in the chat facility, convener. Yeah, I'd like to ask members to go to page 26, clause 2.12. I'd like to support unconditionally the recommendation from officers to award £50,000 to Kilbarchan Community Council to expand and develop the features of the park. I think the depth of the community engagement in relation to the park has been exceptional, and it'll be a fantastic asset with the new amenities. I think some 52% of village respondents in Kilbarchan agreed that the park was an important asset in terms of children's play and children's education. And well, certainly in a bygone age, as a young dad, I used to use the park often with my son, and I think the whole development will be very much welcomed by the village.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I know the amount of hard work that they've been put into this, Councillor Droigas. I met them before myself. Now, members, do any other members want to ask questions or make a comment on item 4 for the green spaces? I can't see anyone else bringing in anything there. It's just in case I miss you out. Item 5, right, okay, thanks very much. Can we agree that report? Thank you. Item 5, COVID-19 service update, communities, housing and planning services, page 31 to 42. Can we agree the report? I think Councillor McLaren, did you wish to come in on this item? No, it wasn't.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, Councillor McLaren here.
Yeah.
I have a question on item 5. It talks about the progress with the new school in Bishopton, new primary school. I was wondering if I could get an update on the new nursery school, please. When is that likely to be open?
Okay, and Councillor Montgomery, you also want to ask the question on item 5? Councillor Montgomery?
Yep. Right, sorry, my mute was taking a while to come off there. Okay. Thanks, Convener. It was just a question. Overall, I'd like to welcome the report. It's very informative for members. Could I just ask, and I know it's not necessarily an exact science, but is there any prospective timescales for the restarting of routine housing, lettings, transfers and exchanges, please?
Okay, thanks for that. And Councillor Max McLaren, you wish to come in on item 5?
Hi, my question was actually the same. Because we've got, I'm sure, like many people, we've got numerous constituents who are now contacting us asking this question, and it'd be good to have some indicative timescales.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burns, you want to come in on this item too?
Yeah, it's just a message to Mary to thank her staff during the virus, particularly the elderly residents and the vulnerable. Our staff, the housing managers, the officers, they've been in touch with most of them via the phone. They've got neighbours to check them, the wardens. The service has been absolutely brilliant, and standing here as a councillor today, I'm delighted with the overall service and the input of the team.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Burns. That's nice to hear. Mary, would you like to answer the questions for Councillor Montgomery and Councillor McLaren and Councillor Max McLaren?
Sorry, I've got a sticky mute button today. Yes, so the nursery issue, I might get Fraser to come in and update on the progress on the Bishopton nursery. In terms of the lettings process, I think everyone will appreciate that we had a fair backlog of homeless cases that we were having to prioritise as lettings started to come back on stream, and pretty much we've been having to focus since the route map freed up for allocations to proceed. I think that was the 29th of June, but that has very much been our focus, trying to catch up on that backlog of homeless applications. We are hoping to move on to more mainstream allocations shortly, but we're not quite there at the present moment. I think members will also appreciate that the voids actually slowed down quite extensively through the lockdown period as well, because we weren't able to process them through building services. So again, there's a backlog there that we're dealing with, in terms of getting voids through the letting process. But we're really aware that it's a long time for no real activity on the housing waiting list allocations, and the team will be hoping to move on to that as soon as we're in a position to do so. Could I ask Fraser maybe to come in on the Bishopton issue, please?
Yes, please.
Sure. I don't have the time just now in terms of the nursery. I know certainly the site construction works were held up during the sort of lockdown period. So if it's okay, Councillor, what I would like to do, I'll catch up with colleagues in property services, come back to you with an update on that, and I can send that around the rest of the members of the board if that's okay.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Any further questions on this item? No. Members, can you make sure you put your questions into the chat? That makes it a wee bit easier for me. Thanks for that. Councillor James McLaren, do you wish to declare an interest?
Convener, I'm declaring an interest at 15C, so it's a while away yet.
Okay, thanks very much. That's noted. Thanks very much for that. Okay. Right, thanks, members. We agree the report. Item 6, Draft Strategic Housing Investment Plan 2021-26, page 43 to 74. Councillor Nicholson, you've got a question for this item.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. It's just a question on page 70 with regards to Erskine sheltered housing due to start on site in 2022. I don't have any information on that, where the site is, or what consultation is taking place, or how far along this particular project has went. So I'd appreciate if I can get some information about that. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for that. I need to also note, members, that Councillor Miles McLaren declared an interest on this item and won't speak to it. Mary, who would you like to answer Councillor Nicholson's question?
Can I bring in Leslie Muirhead just to come in with the detail on that one?
That would be great. Leslie, would you like to come forward, please?
Thank you, Convener. I would say we're at the very early stages, Councillor. We have had proposals included in the SHIP for a couple of years to look for appropriate sites to re-provision some existing sheltered housing, which Bridgewater Housing Association have in Erskine. And I think there was some work done a couple of years ago which confirmed that moving forward, that sheltered housing isn't really fit for purpose, and we should look to an opportunity to re-provision the housing. We're still in early discussions with Bridgewater Housing Association about possible locations. They have identified a site in the Housing Association's ownership, which they're looking at, but I think we're certainly not in a position yet that we've started any consultation with the local community. I think we need to firm up on the possible sites first.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Draw, you want to ask a question on item 6?
Yeah, please, it's really a comment again, Convener, if I could please. It's in relation to Appendix 1, page 69. There is reference to a number of prospective developments. The two that of course, are interest to me. I welcome very much the two prospective developments in Johnston, which is firstly the 29 social tenancies proposed for Ryefield Crescent by Lindstone Housing on the one hand, and the 25 social tenancies in McDowell Street by Loreto Housing, which is proposed. Now, I welcome especially the ones from McDowell Street, because at the end of the day, Convener, our town centres will only be regenerated if we get more people living in them. And I think not only myself, but I think my town centre constituents and Johnston Community Council will welcome the fact that the Loreto application will see the demise of the unsightly and possibly dangerous former Christian Gospel Centre on Millbrae, which since the day and hour I was elected in 2012, I've been trying to work with officers in the community to see it go, because it's been an absolute eyesore, and I congratulate Fraser and his team. And I'll be very pleased to see this development. Indeed, I think it's both are really positive steps forward for Johnston. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Doig. Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that's been we've been waiting on for some time. Delighted it's coming forward now. Thank you for that. Are there no more questions on item 6? No, thank you very much for that. Item 7, the Paisley West End regeneration update, page 75 to 80. I have to advise members there's an additional recommendation, which I may have to read out because I don't think it's been put on the screen yet. Mary, do we have Robert, do you have the recommendation, or will I read it out?
I think it'd be safer to read it. I've not seen it at all, Councillor Murdoch.
Okay, sorry, I sent it through to you, so it might have been a bit late. Bear with me, people, till I get it. So page 75, the recommendation is to note the progress being made in implementing the regeneration master plan for the West End of Paisley in partnership with Sanctuary Scotland, and 2, authorises the Director of Communities, Housing and Planning Services to pursue the compulsory acquisition by the promotion of submission for confirmation to the Scottish Ministers of compulsory purchase orders in respect of the 17 properties as identified in Table 1 of this report for house purposes to enable these properties to be demolished. However, in addition to that, I have an additional recommendation. So if you just bear with me till I get it. Recommendation 3, that prior to the commencement of formal compulsory purchase procedures in relation to the properties in Table 1, that a further report is submitted to this board providing an update on efforts to voluntarily acquire and seeking the approval of the Communities Housing and Planning Board to such CPO procedures. Can I ask members if they would agree to the additional item? Councillor Bill Binks, you want to come in?
Yes, it's just a query on page 76, 3.5. Sanctuary's appointed valuer has been negotiating with the residents. I received an email this morning from a solicitor, Brody's Solicitors, with regard to 2 of his constituents, and that they insist that they've not had answers to their questions, which were submitted 5 months ago. And he's basically asking for answers, and apparently he's not been getting them.
Okay.
Can you make a comment on this?
Yes, we can. There was someone else wanted to come in. Is that you, Councillor Nicholson? Yes, you're correct. That is the additional recommendation. Thank you for putting that on the screen for me, Councillor Nicholson. Mary, who would you like to respond to Councillor Binks?
If I could ask Fraser just to pick that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, we were approached as well from the company acting on behalf of one of the businesses operating in Welsh Street, and we've actually responded to them this morning on that matter. It is an element of ongoing discussion with different businesses in this area, and I think there's actually been different legal companies involved in some of the discussion as well. So we've addressed the points with Brody's, provided feedback to them, and recommending that that businesses continue on with the discussions with Sanctuary. And we look to progress this matter through the sort of voluntary acquisition and discussion, as opposed to having to go down to the formal procedures. So the matter's been addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Kenny McLaren, you wish to come in?
Yes, thank you, Convener. I can understand with the impact of using a CPO forces owners to come to the table and have discussions, but my concern is the same constituent raised by Councillor Binks, that although the CPO might force owners to the table, it's doing nothing to enforce Sanctuary to do their actual job. Every meeting we discuss this, I'll raise further concerns about Sanctuary's role in this development. 5 months and still no reply to letters from lawyers. In this case, this constituent felt they had a deal for one of the properties, and we are shocked to realise this CPO procedure was starting. Like I said, I hadn't heard any information. I had a meeting with the Director and Leslie Muirhead. I wanted to see what documents we've got to say that we're progressing to a CPO, and to be frank, it's nonsense. The information I was given talks about having an open day, but that open day was for a planning application and absolutely nothing to do with the voluntary acquisition of properties. This was a promise made by Sanctuary back in November 2019 that they've failed to fulfil. Also, the information I've got from Sanctuary doesn't match up the dates that Leslie Muirhead provided me with. So I'm just concerned that Sanctuary are trying to pull the wool over our eyes and hope to use a CPO to hide the fact that they've not been doing their job. I'm happy with the amendment because I think we really need to pull Sanctuary in line with us. I think they've let everybody down. They've let us down in this regeneration, and they've certainly let down the owners and residents in the area. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McCann. Yeah, hopefully the additional item recommendation will help make that more pertinent for the residents in Wells Street, that we are taking this seriously. And I will be speaking with the Director about speaking to Sanctuary in due course about what their next action will be. Can members agree the recommendation?
Yeah, Convener, I just to say that I also had a question that I wanted to ask. It was on the same subject.
Yeah.
I definitely think that questions need to be asked about Sanctuary, or they need to get be sorted out by the head of planning. I think to try and get them to respond quicker.
Okay, but, thanks very much, Councillor
McCann. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor McCann. Your comments are noted. Can we agree the recommendations of the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much for that. Can we go to item 8, Scottish Social Housing Charter annual return? Can we agree the report, please? No. Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. I hope the rest of the members agree too. Thank you. Item 9, Housing Energy Efficiency and Carbon Reduction Programmes for 2020 and 21, page 105 to 108. Can we agree the report and be grateful that we've got this funding to help us to be able to achieve that? Any questions on the item? No. Can we agree the report, please?
Agreed.
Thank you for that. Item 10, Community Justice Annual Report, page 109 to 166. Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Note the report. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Item 11, Land and Property Disposal of Land adjacent to 4 Iona Road, Renfrew, page 167 to 170. Can we agree the report and the recommendation?
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Development Management and Planning, item 12, Renfrewshire Local Development Plan Scheme, page 171 to 192. Can we agree the report?
Convener, I've got a question, please.
Yes, Councillor Joy.
Thank you. My question is, I could refer members, please, to page 179. There is a paragraph which refers to the Planning Act 2019. Now, my specific question is this: does the Planning Act 2019 compromise the ability of this planning authority in Renfrewshire to focus on our distinctive planning needs by making us work under the direction of the Glasgow City region in preparing a regional spatial strategy? I'm very interested, Convener, in where the fault lines lie between the city, the Glasgow City region cabinet setup was originally very much for economic development. It does concern me a wee bit. I mean, I'm fine about Glasgow City batting for its own needs and its own interests, but I don't really see where the connection is in planning terms. And so can the officers answer this question? What will our ability to promote a regional spatial strategy be affected by being under the direction of the Glasgow City deal? And why is that necessary to be under the direction of the Glasgow City deal? Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Joy. Mary, can you recommend which officer should respond to Councillor Joy?
If I can ask Fraser Carlin to come in, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. And I think we've always recognised that strategic planning in the west of Scotland's been a success story for a number of years, a number of decades if it comes to it. And Clyde Plan's been the organisation that's been the 8 councils have been working with and through for the last 20 odd years since the organisation. Clyde Plan continues on as it stands just now, but is coming within the auspice of the wider Glasgow City region activity. But as it stands just now, there still will be a forum at which planning authorities can come together and ensure that issues, wider strategic and regional issues around housing, land supply, industrial land supply, transportation, infrastructure is all covered. That, in terms of how that then feeds into the national planning framework, is something that's subject to discussion just now with the Scottish Government. So an indicative regional spatial strategy, which at this stage is just very much draft, has been presented to Scottish Government about what are the key issues for the west of Scotland and how that will then tie into the national planning framework, which is coming down from the government as well. And that will ensure that the needs and the requirements of the west of Scotland are always they're crucial to the performance of the national economy. And within that we've got Renfrewshire Council as a lead partner of one of the 8 councils who are operating to deliver the right planning framework for the west of Scotland as well. So it's in a period of change just now, even just in terms of the structures and governance, which is getting dictated through the Planning Act and the National Planning Framework. But there certainly will still be a strong regional planning policy and a regional planning voice for the west of Scotland.
Convener, can I come back, please, with a supplementary? What happens then, Convener, if the planning needs of the west of Scotland are in conflict with the planning needs of Renfrewshire? Who decides?
As has happened with that to date, the 8 councils have worked very well across the last 20 years to make sure that we're working in partnership and support for one another. And I think it's from that position of strength where we feel as if, well, that's something that we could continue on. It's not necessarily been something that's been dominated just by the city. It's been very much the city and the 7 partners that are joining it, and I'm sure that's the intention as we move forward as well. And it's making sure we've got these governance structures and the opportunities to input to the wider regional agenda that we'd want to make sure that those forums and opportunities still exist.
Okay, thanks. Right, Councillor Kassoon, you want to come in?
Not convinced.
Right, Chair. No, I'm quite happy to cover off maybe the more political end of this debate. The City Region met last week, and one of the items agenda was future governance arrangements for the City Region as well. And if I can provide any assurance to any of the members here today, is that there's a strong will, and I might use the term resistance, to powers being taken from local government and handed to a body such as the City Region. My contribution to that was there's areas where we could share some powers. And to give any assurance to Councillor Doig as well, the discussion around this particular item is about spatial planning. It's about a wider, higher level of planning, and it's not expected to go down to the level of deciding which sites will be used for housing or things like that. It's more about how transport works across the whole region and how do we facilitate that amongst all the 8 councils. And there has been a lot of work for years, as Fraser's just said, at a regional level with regard to bigger issues that cover the whole City Region area. So if I can provide any assurances at all today, okay. Myself and other council leaders who were at that meeting last week were very clear about how we will engage with a discussion about the governance arrangements for the City Region going forwards. And if I can just say to Andy in particular, and you'll get this when I say this, the words Strathclyde Regional Council were mentioned a few times. So that's always the ghost in the cupboard we pull out. So I'm happy to have a conversation with Andy another time, another place, exactly where we are with that.
That's fine. That's fine. Convener,
I'm just giving you assurances on that one just now.
Thank you, Nichols. I'll take you up on that.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Okay, can we agree the report?
Great.
Thank you. Right, item 13, Renfrewshire Planning Performance Framework 193248. This, Councillor Nicholson, you've got a question for this one?
Yeah, my question really is, bearing in mind the head of Planning Scotland guidance around preparation of these reports, and I know that it's been sent to the Scottish Government on the 31st of July, and we've been asked to note it today, but in the guidance, it clearly states that political support and buy-in to the achievements of the planning service requires the approval and discussion, including the sharing of the Scottish Government's views and RAG markings as well. And I've had a look at Inverclyde's PPF, and I've had a look at North Ayrshire, and they're all different. Ours appears to be a promotional piece as opposed to an audit piece. So my real question is, will this report come back to this board for final approval? And will it include the response from the Scottish Government? And will the elected members, because one of the guidance principles as well is that you must have political buy-in and support. And I think when you're putting out a performance framework, you should maybe engage with a bit of consultation with the members of this board on a wider level. And the guidance quite clearly says you have to have the leadership of the council buying into it as well. And when I say leadership, I mean maybe the party political leaders as well. So it's just a question of whether this report will come back to us again at some point in the future, because I think there's a discussion to be had about the format of it, because it's markedly different from others that I've seen out there. I could name you all the planning officers and their photographs because it's in their PPF, but it's not in ours. And I can name you their remits and what roles they play within the planning service. So I think there's a discussion to be had about how this particular document gets framed and put forward. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Mary, can I ask Fraser to come in, please? Thank you. Fraser, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, sure. No, there's a RAG, the sort of red, amber, green assessment that comes through every year from the Scottish Government, and we'll bring that back to the board. So that is what this, in terms of the guidance, it's councils see them in different ways, and we work with different colleagues in different parts of councils and try and present it so that we do present similar pictures and similar stories. It is very much about something that's to promote activities that councils are involved with through their planning services, as well as an opportunity to show what's the resources that exist across different councils as well. But yeah, we'll bring the RAG assessment back and certainly take on board what you say, Councillor, in terms of other issues that the leadership and the members would like to see in this, like the framework that we provide back to the Scottish Government. Okay,
thank you for that, Fraser. Councillor Nicholson, do you want to come back in, or you?
Well, no, it's just the question was, will the report come back?
Yeah.
With including the ratings from the Scottish Government, because that's the guidance is quite clear on that should be in the report before we approve it. Thanks.
Okay, it will do. Thanks very much for that. Thank you for that. Now, members can can we agree the report then? Or note the report. Thanks very much. So item 13, Renfrewshire Planning, it's item 14, proposals of application notices. It's page 249 to 254. If members like to go to that. Councillor Burns, you noted you wanted to speak on page, you wanted to make a comment on page 250. 249, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Just the prospective plan application, have we got dates when it would come back to the board? Just the community councils know, obviously sitting back till September, so just so that the wider community can get feedback on that, because I've had a few constituents already asking about traffic and different things. Thank you.
Okay. Fraser, it's okay, you come in and respond.
Yeah, no problem with that. No, there isn't a date just now. I'm afraid, Councillor, the consultation period lasts for 12 weeks, and then the applicant is open. They could submit an application at any time beyond that. as it stands, when the application comes in, there will be full consultation. Community Council will be consulted, and the report will be brought back to the board in due course as well. So when it comes in, it will be on the legal list. Members will be informed as well. But we don't have a timetable just now, I'm afraid, for the actual application itself.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor James McLaren, you want to come in on item 14B?
Yes, thank you, convener. Just a question. I don't want to express an opinion here, but so this recycling plant's been working with 25,000 tonnes per annum, and initially there was concern from local businesses about flies and such thing. Has that been resolved? Do we still have complaints about this company, or is it working well as it is at the moment?
Okay, Councillor Nicholson, you also have a question for item 14, page 14.
Yeah, it's with the key issues element of the application, because this is a notice. I think a valid consideration to be considered, and I think I'd hope it be accepted, is that the planning history of the site, which is a material consideration, should be identified as a key issue. And the reason why I think that should be there is because this company, even although located in Shannon, has a serious issues with complying with the conditions put upon them, condition 4 in particular, and we have serious issues with our planning service in being able to enforce the conditions. So I would hope that that's accepted as a key issue for consideration, and I've made that known to the applicant's agent as well, in the sense that because in Shannon Community Council have been on about this, and they feel aggrieved at the fact that even the conditions we do put on them, they don't appear to comply with them, and then they try to submit applications in to change the conditions as well. So as I say, I'm just hopeful that the planning service will accept that as a valid consideration, as a key issue. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I'll answer that in a wee minute. Councillor McLaren, is the application B on page 14 you wish to come in?
It's planning application B.
Okay, we'll come to that in a wee second. Yeah, we can add that on, Councillor Nicholson. We can add this onto the list. I'll ask Fraser to come in and confirm that. Please, Fraser, can you come in?
Yeah, no, we certainly can take that on board, Councillor, and we'll work along beside colleagues in SEPA as well, in terms of dealing with issues around environmental management and our own colleagues within the environmental protection team. So that's a reasonable request to ask of an applicant at this stage. Okay,
thanks very much for that.
Can I get my question answered, please?
Yes.
Yeah, some similar position around that, Councillor, as well. Yeah, in terms of we'll look at the history of the site and activities, and that will be taken into consideration through the determination of the application if it follows.
Okay, is that okay, Councillor McLaren, James McLaren?
I haven't heard anything about problems with flies. I was presuming that the 25,000 tonnes was working well, but so I would just, if I'm wrong, I was hoping somebody might enlighten me. No, all working well then.
Councillor Fraser, can you respond to that, please?
I think probably Councillor would be as well to speak colleagues, and it's there's issues around sort of how the site operates. There's been issues around sort of, as Councillor Nicholson would refer to, but adherence to conditions and the like as well. So I think the determination of this planning application is when that comes forward, we'll take in how the site's used, the impact on the surrounding area, and it would take into just how the site is operated as well. So I think we will consider that issue when the application arrives.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks very much for that. Can we go to item 15, page 255, please? And we'll do each planning application on its own. Item A, I've received a request from a member to have a predetermination hearing. Councillor Nicholson, do you want to come forward, please?
Thanks, Chair.
Mute.
Councillor Nicholson, you're on mute. All right, you put it on the screen.
That's me now. I'm sorry, Chair. I'm hopeful the board will support this application to have a predetermination hearing. Even this morning, Erskine Community Council, Shannon Community Council are happy if the planning board would facilitate this for them. I think it will allow the local community an opportunity to question the applicant. It will allow the applicant to explain the details of their application a bit more clearly. And I think whatever happens with the outcome of this application, it will help with the planning process to provide a voice to the local community to be able to express their opinion and be satisfied that we've done everything we can to allow as much consultation to go on. So I think this is a good way forward, convener, on this particular application. I'm hopeful the board will support it. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll second that for Councillor Nicholson. Can I ask members if they all agree to this?
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Item B, Councillor Myers-McLaren, you want to come in?
Thank you, convener. I would like to propose a site visit for this planning application. There are a number of things that are concerning me regarding the application, and I think some of it is, a lot of it is very much about what the site looks like. It's not least the ability of the developer in terms of what they've put forward and claiming things like there were trees on site, but then when officers visited there weren't trees on the site and this wasn't the case. It is very, very close to residential properties, and I have concerns about where there will be overlooking. I have concerns about noise, and I have concerns about the actual height of the building. The report says that the height would be reduced in part to 3 stories on one side. I've looked at the elevations and plans, and it's not clear from them to me where it is being reduced, because the plans still seem to be showing a 5-storey building with the same number of rooms in both versions. So I'm not sure how they could be lowering the height and then having the same number of rooms in the hotel. And it's quite difficult to know what impact there is going to be, not just on the properties that are very, very close by to the site, but those in Marchfield Avenue in general, where there is a hotel at one side of the site, which is a 2-storey hotel. All the properties in Marchfield Avenue are 2 stories, and there is a smaller housing that's actually right beside the site, which isn't at this moment screened by trees or anything like that. And I'm struggling very hard to figure out from the plans what that means, and I would like a site visit for the developer to explain it all to us.
Yes, Councillor McLaren, yeah, I think that's pertinent. I think we should do a site visit on this one, and we'll do that. Thanks very much. The item C, I think again, sorry, can people mute themselves, please? You'll not be able to hear properly. Thanks very much. Thank you for that. Item C, again, I'd like to do a site visit on this one. There's been a number of correspondence coming in back for this one. I think it's pertinent for the board to do a site visit. To have a seconder for that one?
Yeah, I'll second it. That's fine.
Right,
agreed on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Item D, the recommendations to grant. Members have any? I would agree to grant this one. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Nicholson, thanks very much. Thanks, Kenny, you too. So can we agree? Item D, application D, thank you. And if we go over the page, item E, recommendation to grant, I would recommend to grant. Can I have a seconder for that one, please? No?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. Can we agree that application? And item F, the TA Centre, which is a recommendation to grant. Can we? I would recommend to grant. Can I have a seconder? Kenny, you want to come in? Councillor McLaren, do you want to come in? Yep. Kenny. Councillor Kenny McLaren, you want to say something?
Seems to be a delay. Come on.
Yeah, it's fine. Just take your
Yeah,
time.
it seems to be a delay when you click the button. So
yeah,
here there are Max is operating it remotely. I welcome any attempt to not just preserve but enhance iconic buildings in Paisley and Hampshire. I think we've suffered from a lack of action as an authority in holding developers and owners to account. But I do have a concern that it's got to be sympathetic to each building in each area. And I do have a concern that we've got the TA building right on the skyline of Paisley with the Coates Memorial at one side and the revamped museum at the other. And then just behind it, we've got Oakshore Conservation Area. And although it looks good, the development of the main building of the TA building, I have serious concerns about what I would call the Lego block buildings behind it. The fact that they're so tall, they're overlooking the TA building itself. I think that diminishes the stature and status of the TA building. I think it has an impact on the neighbouring buildings and an impact on the visual amenity of the whole site. I've got concerns about the number of students that have been pushed in here, 338, which is far out of context or far in excess of any massing in any other area, any other properties in that area. Excuse me. There's also an issue about parking. 338 students or residents and not a parking space. Yet there's one of our biggest issues in that area is the concern about students parking everywhere. They take up council car parks in Canal Street, George Court, George Street, all along Wellmeadow. Every few months, the universities send out emails to the students to ask them to stop parking in private car parks, and every few months it happens again. I'm worried that 338 people move in there. I'm not saying all of them will have cars, but I'm sure, irrespective of their tenancy agreements, there will be cars and there will be parking issues involved. And I find it strange. There seems to be a lack of consistency in parking policy. I know Underwood Road's only a few streets away, and for an allotment, it was argued they needed 15 parking spaces for an allotment, but apparently you don't need any parking spaces for 338 students. So with that, I think I'd like to move a refusal on the adverse impact that this application would have on residential amenity, including overshadowing and loss of privacy.
Okay, do you have a seconder, Councillor?
Convener, I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Doig. Do I have a seconder to agree to grant? Councillor Nicholson, thanks very much. Councillor, anybody else wish to speak on this one? Councillor Ken McCann, you've done it. Councillor McCulloch, you've missed your opportunity. Sorry about that, Councillor McCulloch.
That's okay. It was for a site visit. That's fine, Convener.
Right, okay. My apologies for that.
It's okay.
Okay, Councillor Miles McCann, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate some of the concerns about the parking in the area. It is very fraught at the moment, and no matter what tenancy agreement that you put in place, there would be issues with people bringing cars. There's no way you can determine what car belongs to what person. I don't believe anybody's going to trawl around the streets. There is already significant congestion and problems in that area, leading to fights. Particularly, I mean, I work out of an office in that area, and the number of times that students park in private car parks and then block people in, or else get blocked in themselves and basically almost have stand-up fights. I know it's become close to having the police called and things like that. And for the parking alone, never mind all the other issues that I do agree with Councillor Kenny McLaren on, I think that this application should be refused.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor John McNaughton, you want to come in?
Hello. Yes, thanks. It's a bit slow on the mute button. I understand and appreciate a number of the concerns that have been raised, and I have some concerns myself on the parking, on the volume of the number of student bedrooms in the place. I think it's a specific proposal for this building, and I think it's also important that for the listed buildings that we try and get a reuse and a viable reuse. and this appears at least potentially to be such. I also note on the listed building, which will come on to the application, that Historic Scotland haven't objected to it. So whilst it's not ideal, I think we need to take our chances or take the opportunities where we can, and if it works out, it could be quite a good development. It appears to be for a specific purpose with students. I don't think it should create a particular parking problem, but if it does, we can address that through other means. That's all.
Thanks very much, Councillor McNaughton. Andrew, you want to come in? Andrew McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you, Convener. It's just to remind members that following changes early this year to the planning legislation, when we issue a decision, we have to state whether or not a proposal accords with the local development plan. So I have Councillor McLaren's planning reasons for why he thinks the application should be refused. Is it his position that because of these reasons it doesn't meet the local development plan, or is it his position it does meet local development plan, but because of these reasons it should be refused anyway?
Okay, thanks. Councillor Kerry McCann, can you come in?
Yes.
Right, okay, well that's in a nutshell then, is it? Councillor Stephen Burns, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, maybe looking at moving it to a site visit to let the members see the traffic and make sure if we are going for a site visit, we do it at lunchtime, maybe September when the unis are back.
Okay, well, we've not been asked for a site. Well, are you asking for a site visit?
Yeah, I'll go for a site visit.
Do you have a seconder for a site visit? Was that you, Councillor Doyle? Did you indicate to support Councillor Burns?
No.
No, okay. Right, okay.
No, I was scratching my head. Sorry, Convener.
Okay. If you've got no one second you there, Councillor Burns, for a site visit.
Yeah, I'll second him. Councillor Mags McLaren.
All right, Councillor Mags McLaren's second and Councillor Burns. Okay, if members, we have an objection to the application, we have a grant to the application, and we have a site visit to the application.
Councillor McGuck, can I just come in, please, if you don't mind? At the moment, we have a motion by Councillor McGuck, which has been seconded by Councillor Nicholson. We then have an amendment by Councillor Kenny McLaren, seconded by Councillor Andy Doig. We then have a further amendment that we have a site visit from Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Mags McLaren. So in the first instance, we'll have the vote, which is the motion against the amendment by Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Okay, thank you.
The vote will be by roll call, and I'll shout out people's names. Now, I'll need to give everyone a bit of time to come back because they're going to have to mute and unmute. So you need to bear with me a wee second here. So I'll shout out the councillor's name, and then if they could indicate whether they're voting for the motion by Councillor McGuck or the amendment by Councillor Kenny McLaren. The winning vote there will then be put on against the further amendment by Councillor Burns. Okay, so bear with me a second. Councillor Binks.
Councillor McLaren's proposal.
That's the amendment, okay. Councillor Brown.
Motion.
Councillor Burns.
Amendment.
Councillor Andy Doig. You're on mute, Councillor Andy Doig.
Hang on. Can you hear me now? Amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dawn.
Amendment.
Councillor James McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Mags McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor McCulloch.
Motion.
Councillor McGurk.
Motion.
Councillor McNaughton.
Motion.
Councillor Montgomery.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor Rodden.
Motion.
and Councillor Strang. Councillor Strang.
Amendment.
We have seven voting. We have 7 voting for the motion and 8 for the amendment. Consequently, the amendment.
Sorry, what was it? Can you read that out again, Robert, please? I couldn't hear you.
We have 7 voting for the motion and 8 for the amendment. Consequently, the amendment is carried, and the amendment will now become the motion, and we'll put that up against Councillor Burns's amendment that we have a site visit. Okay.
Okay.
So the motion is now by Councillor Kenny McLaren, and the amendment is by Councillor Burns. So if you, again, I'll shout out names if you can indicate which you're voting for. Councillor Binks.
Motion.
Councillor Brown.
Amendment.
Councillor Burns.
Amendment.
Councillor Andy Doig.
Motion.
Councillor Dawn.
Amendment.
Councillor James McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Max McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor McCulloch.
Amendment.
Councillor McGurk.
Amendment.
Councillor McNaughton.
Amendment.
Councillor Montgomery.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholson.
Amendment.
Councillor Rodden.
Amendment.
And Councillor Strang.
Amendment.
So we have 12 voting for the amendment, 3 for the motion. The amendment is carried, and just to be clear, we're talking about, we've agreed that a site visit be undertaken.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What were the figures again, Robert, please, for that second vote?
Sorry, for the second vote, it was 12 for the amendment and 3 for the motion. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Robert. Okay, so we've agreed on a site visit for item 5. Item G, we won't we'll carry that forward. And item H is I recommend a site visit for this one. Can I have a seconder, please?
Oh, Convener.
Yes, Councillor Doyle.
Convener, I would like to move refusal of application, please. I think, I think it's very telling that Howard Community Council, whilst they're sympathetic to the demands of tourism and economic development as outlined in the paper, have also came out in opposition to the granting of this application. Now, the specific reason that I'm moving against this recommendation is I think it would conflict with planning policy E4, as the existing road and sewerage infrastructure cannot withstand the greater pressure that this application would incur if successful. For members who don't know the Beaufield, the Howwood area, the sole access to Beaufield Country Club is through the residential route at Beaufield Road in Howwood. Now, every time there is flash flooding, which is quite considerable these days, because members will be aware in recent years we're having more and more instances of this kind of weather. So every time there's flash flooding, water pours down Beaufield Road. The drainage system can overflow into several residential properties, and it causes great consternation. Now, this continual and recurring problem is such that last year, around about a year ago, when the schools were just taking back after the summer break in 2019, the manhole cover at the bottom of Beaufield Road blew off with the water pressure, and the surface of the road started to lift. Now, you heard me quite right there, started to lift from the pavement. Now, this led to the closure of Beaufield Road for a number of days. The main route to primary school for the village children was disrupted.
Councillor Doig, if you got a seconder, sorry, I'd asked you if you got a seconder. You didn't answer that,
I'll
sir.
throw myself open to the mercy of members. I'm hoping for a seconder will emerge.
Members, any members wish to second Councillor Doig?
I've got my hand up.
Oh, Councillor Binks.
Yes, I'll second that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Somebody has
Thank
a
you,
mayor. A white knight has
you
a mayor.
take your wee hand out, please, Councillor Doig. Thanks.
My wee hand. Right. Okay then. Down.
Right.
Now, this is context for the councillors who are not au fait with Howard and with Bowfield Road. This doesn't signal sound infrastructure to me. Now, if you read the application, you would get the impression the infrastructure of and the topography of Bowfield Road and the surrounding region, because the country club is situated right at the top, was quite sound. And quite the opposite is the case. Because I think any further strain on the water infrastructure at the top of the hill would place an intolerable strain on the sewerage system. Now, can I give a quick example, convener? Along with environmental services, I'm investigating an issue which is affecting 3 constituents, 3 residents, 3 families in the centre of Howard Village. And when we had a site visit, I'll take no interruptions, convener. When we had a site visit last week, the officers were quite clear, attending, that in fact the source of this flooding may well come from the Bowfield Road drainage system, and that's yet to be confirmed, but the suspicion was definitely there. So that's an outline of the infrastructure weaknesses in relation to water and sewerage. Now, the report repeatedly states at least 3 times, without giving any single evidence to back up the assertion, that the road infrastructure can accommodate this development. Yet the B776 is a rural road. It's the only road connection that connects actually the West Renfrewshire part of the Renfrewshire South constituency to the East Renfrewshire part. And the junction of the country club is quite a notorious site for accidents due to poor lighting and lack of visible road markings. Finally, convener, I'm sure the planning officer will be quick to point out that, quote, remedial works are part of the conditions. But that would be strictly limited, if I understand correctly, to the site of the country club and not to the adjoining infrastructure. So if either the applicants or the council are committed to invest in a major sewerage and roads upgrade of the B776 into Bowfield Road, then that would maybe change my mind about this. But reluctantly and regrettably, I'd like to move against the recommendation. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Banks, do you want to come in?
Yes, so just to add to Councillor Doig's commentary, one has to take into consideration that 500 metres of this hill approaching the hotel is single traffic line. You cannot pass 2 cars in the road at all because of continual parking down there. Besides, the additional traffic obviously is affected by the school children coming and going. Also, I've had a number of letters, not just from the local households, but from farmers in the area who are continually complaining about the amount of litter, which of course affects the livestock that they are looking after, and you know, with ingestion and so on. And they have had incidents of this, and they only feel that this would add to that situation. And these are just a few other additions to this argument. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Councillor Nichols made a comment. Councillor John McNaughton, you wanted to come in?
Yes, thanks. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, I'd like to come in support of Councillor Doig's motion to refuse. I know the site well. I don't feel the need for a site visit in this case. It's a proposal which is in the green belt. It's inappropriate in my view. It's an incongruous development and would have an adverse impact on the amenity for the adjacent residents. I think it's a fairly cut and dried, and whilst some development in the green belt is appropriate, not all tourism would be appropriate. And knowing this site, I'm quite firmly of the view that this is inappropriate, and I would support Councillor Doig in his refusal motion.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Does anyone else wish to come in at this time? No. Robert, do you want to?
Yeah, just for clarification, we have a motion by Councillor McGurk, seconded by Councillor Rodden, a site visit be undertaken, and then we have an amendment by Councillor Doig, seconded by Councillor Binks, that the application be refused.
Yep.
Again, I'll shout out the names of the members of the board, and if you could indicate whether you wish to vote for the motion or the amendment. So it's Councillor Binks.
Amendment.
Councillor Brown.
Motion.
Councillor Burns.
Motion.
Councillor Andy Doig.
Amendment.
Councillor Dawn.
Amendment.
Councillor James McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Mags McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor McCulloch.
Amendment.
Councillor McGurk.
Motion.
Councillor McNaughton.
Amendment.
Councillor Montgomery.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor Rodden.
Motion.
And Councillor Strang.
Amendment.
So we have 10 voting for the amendment, 5 for the motion. The amendment is declared carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. That's for all your help today in getting the first meeting over and done with. Thanks very much for that. Take care, everyone.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Bill.